This talk show is brought to you by Health Plans, your Medicare plans, insurance solutions, and resource agency. We have a variety of plans and products that fit your needs, benefit requirements, and budget, with many low or no-cost premium plans, zero co-pays, and much more. Our licensed benefits advisor's priority is your health and well-being. Call us today and book your no-obligation consultation. 1-929-367-5269. Coming up next is Sales World.
Folks, welcome back to the Sales World channel. iHealth Radio with your host, Hurricane H. New day, new show, new guest. And today we're going to go into the world of sales and a journey of a success story, and also an author coach of a new book. I would say that the book is just come out, I think, in February, and we'll talk more about the book. And so we'll talk about, sales from a higher scale. I mean, from a very, very upscale, I would say, level of industry standards, and what works, what doesn't work, things like that. So we'll give you guys some tips on how to be good leaders and just what to avoid, I guess, and what to do versus what not to do. And then, of course, the content of the book will guide us through some of those tactics and strategies. With me today, I have Glenn Poulos. And again, Coach, he is an author, he is an executive, he is an owner of business. I mean, he's done it all. Glenn, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Thank you, Hurricane. Happy to be here. I'm doing really well today. Thank you.
All right. Well, listen, I know. First of all, it's an honor. I know you have an extensive experience in the sales world and just leading teams and successful stories over more than 30 years. I think I'm aging.
35 years.
35 years there. I'm just guessing there, but
yeah.
So that's a lot of time, to spend, in the industry of sales, and sales is I would say everything revolves around sales, and people may just look at me funny, but I have always said this: there is nothing that happens in this world that doesn't have a sales transaction in it.
I totally agree. Everything's selling.
I mean, it doesn't matter, relationships,
especially if you have a wife or a partner or a spouse or whatever, man, you're always selling, trying to convince them all the things you need and where places you want to go and things you need to buy. And we're always selling someone on something, our kids, our coworkers, and our customers, for sure. Right. So, well,
whenever there's two people talking, there's a transaction happening. One is going to sell somebody something, an idea, a service, a product. And again, the industries, everything revolves around it. Now, I know you started in this Pat, a long time ago, and you've led it well. And I think you were in the the wireless environment.
Yes.
So let's talk about Glenn's journey, how it began, and what got you into today, and certainly what prompted you to get this book out. By the way, I'm not even sure. I'm sorry. I'm not even sure if that the only book or you have other books?
I only have the one book.
Okay.
And not sure I have another one in me, but we'll see.
All right. Well, let's take us through that.
Yeah, for sure. So so I went to school for electronics. I went to an electronics school called DeVry Institute. It's a very popular school around North America. And funny, I wanted to install car stereos for a living, and I thought that was going to be the coolest thing. And my dad's like, "No, dude, if you're going to be playing with electronics, you're going to learn how to play with electronics, right?" So sent me off to from Niagara Falls to Toronto to DeVry Institute, and I got headhunted sort of right out of college from the government of Canada, and they wanted me to be an electronic technician. And I ended up working for them for 3 years. And at one point, my boss came to me and he said, you're not cut out for government work. You should be in sales. And my coworker was saying, you work too fast. You got to slow down, and I really only have sort of two speeds, right? Go and stop, right? Pretty much. And
I can relate.
So I didn't really completely understand it at the time, but I guess he saw something in me about my, blathering on and, my talkative ways or something like that. Right. So I applied for a job, and it's the story is, in the book actually. And it talks about where I really only applied for one sales job because I didn't have any experience applying for jobs. I got headhunted out of school. They gave me more training. I worked for them for a few years, and then the guy said, get a sales job. So I went and looked for technical sales jobs, found the first one, applied for it, and I got an interview. And then I started following up with the guy's secretary like in the morning and the afternoon every day. And I'm like, yeah, and the guy's name was Kim. And it's like, hey, did Kim make a decision yet? And she's like, no, not yet. And I'm like, well, can I speak to him? No, he's busy. I'm like, okay, well, I'll tell him Glenn called, and I'm wondering when he's going to staff the position, right? So like 2 weeks later, he says, you're going to Montreal. And so I got on a plane, I flew to Montreal, and you have to understand, I work for the government and going around fixing these electronic things at weather stations. And we drove these little Chevy Chevettes with crank windows, no air conditioning, no radio. Whatever the most basic car that you could ever drive was, they were Canada green, and that was it. And that's what I was used to driving around, and I flew to Montreal, and one of the other owners of the company picked me up, and he had a BMW 750. And I thought, oh man, I'm definitely going into sales, like for sure. And so he drives me to the office. There were 4 owners. 3 of them were in the Montreal office. He pulls into his parking spot. Beside him were 2 more BMW 750s. And they all had their license plates were like 1 digit apart, right? So they'd all gotten these matching 750s, right? And I was like, as a young kid, right, I was completely blown away. And I'm like, oh man, I'm done. I'm definitely getting a job in sales, right? So I did the interview with the other guys. They sent me back to Toronto, and the guy hired me. Once he had me on board, he's like, I just want you to know, you were not the guy we wanted to hire. You were not even you weren't even on the short list. And I'm like, well, why am I here? And he's like, well, you're the only guy that followed up twice a day for 2 weeks. And so we just assumed that if you're going to follow up twice a day to get the job, you'll follow up twice a day to keep the job, right? And so that began my career in sales. And I worked for them for 5 years, and that's when I started taking down lessons, which I called factors. And that's part of the subtitle of the book, 57 factors to grow business and a career selling. And the factors were all usually named after people or situations where, and a lot of times they were like, don't make this mistake, or, repeat this good habit, right? Mm-hmm. And I started writing them down. And so about 5 years in, just before my 30th birthday, and I had this goal that I wanted to be I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to start a business and say that I did it before I was 30, right? And so I came up with this idea, and I was convinced that this new device was going to be all the rage, and it was going to be super, super popular. And I brought the idea to my bosses, and I said, look, I want to spin off a division, and I'm going to own part of it. You guys can own part of it. I'll take a couple of the vendors that you guys sell, and I'll go get a bunch more in this new area of technology, and you get the best of both worlds. You get a new equity play, and I get to be an entrepreneur and run my own business and do all the things I want to do. And the president says, oh yeah, Glenn, why don't you make a plan? I'm going to show you. It's just how these things, they just don't work. It'll never work, right? Well, the next day, I wrote him a plan. All right. It started off with, I hereby resign. And I resigned the next day. Now I'd only been, and also it's funny thing, the last thing I'd signed before the resignation letter, 6 days before that, I had signed my marriage contract because I'd gotten married 6 days before I quit my job. Right. I went out home and I went, oh honey, by the way, I quit my job. And and she's like, what? So anyways, that was, and that's kind of the way I sometimes do things. Maybe it's a quality, a good quality or a bad quality, but I kind of like have a vision of something I want to do, and it becomes a little unstoppable. And I don't really see the short-term, hurdles as something that scares me, and I'm actually able to take action, right? And now this, if jumping out of an airplane without a parachute, I mean, that wouldn't work out in my favor. But I was convinced, and so this industry, they thought, and this business was based on this technology called the cell phone. And of course, that never went anywhere, right? And who needs a cell phone, right? And of course, this was like 1991, right? And of course, they were, back then they were already getting a little popular, but obviously we know what they're like now, right? And and so I built that company for 13 and a half years. And I ended up, this is where my life story gets a little crazy, but I ended up selling my first business by a process called a reverse takeover, where a public company comes and they give you enough shares that you end up becoming one of the majority shareholders in their public company. It's a very common, but I was a really good salesman and I was really good at running the business, but I didn't know a bugger all about running about a public companies. And honestly, I was so naive about it. And these guys were they owned a bunch of other businesses, and at the forefront they looked very reputable, and I became instant multimillionaire overnight, right? I was the biggest shareholder in the public entity, and within 18 months, my division, the company that I started and that we were running, they had bankrupted it, and 100 of us lost our jobs. The public company did not go bankrupt, but eventually those shares that were worth about $5 million when I gave them my business, 18 months, were worth like a few tens of K or whatever a year and a half later. And so I was basically went from millionaire to broke with no job, right? And I thought to myself, oh my God, what am I going to do? And remember, at this point now, I had, never made a resume, right? I got headhunted out of college. I went straight to the government. The government guy told me to apply for sales jobs. I basically just whipped something together and applied for one job, got that job for 5 years, then quit, then ran my first company, right? Then the company went under, and now I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Like, I don't know how to get a job. And so I basically decided that I was going to start another company, and I was going to correct all the mistakes that I felt we'd made in the first company. And I was going to pick better partners, associates, compatriots, everybody that was involved in the business in one way or another. I was going to do all my due diligence was going to be only with the best quality people, right? And so that's what I did. So within a few days of me sort of being out on the street, I had started a new company, and the company's called Gap Wireless, and I came up with that name. I started with my name, Glenn Poulos, GP, right? And I mean, my middle initial is J, so Jip Wireless didn't sound that good off the tongue. And so I bought a vowel, and I started with the first one, A, G-A-P, Gap, and I went Gap Wireless. And within 10 minutes, I had a name, and I went on logomaker.com and made a logo. And I took a little bit of money out of my retirement, and I ended up partnering up with some other people, with a business partner in Quebec, and we got some financing from a couple other guys. But my new business partner and we ran the company for 15 years, and I'm happy to talk about it in any way you want. But we sold the company in February to a much more reputable company this time, for cash this time, not shares. And in February of 2022, like a few months ago, and we both accepted jobs in the bigger company now, helping them to grow their business for a few years. And I'm 60 now, so I'll probably time out in the next 3 to 5 years and drift off into the sunset, right? So that's I know that's a bit of a ramble there, but that's actually my career life story. And during the pandemic is when I wrote the book, and I'm happy to answer any questions about how I came up with that. But I wrote the book when we were locked in Canada, because I'm in Toronto, right? Our lockdown was pretty severe. In Quebec, even in Canada, they had a curfew. We didn't have a curfew, but there was nowhere to go at night, and there was nowhere to go on the weekend. Literally everything was closed. You had to pick up your groceries in the parking lot, and it was long, right? Other places in North America were open sooner, but we really only got back to normal a few months ago. And so we didn't have a lot to do on the weekend. So that was when I said, I took the advice. Everyone's like, oh, you should write a book. You should write a book of all my factors that I'd been spouting off for these years, right? And I thought, hey, why not give it a try? So I did. And as I like to say, I committed to writing 2,000 words every weekend. And when I got to 75,000 words, I sent it to an editor, and she sent it back, and she said, and after she took the F word out of the book, I had 71,000 words left, right? And she's like, you can't swear that much in a book, you know? And I'm like, that's the way I talk, right? She's like, look, you can say the F word 3 times, and you can say God damn it a couple times, and that's it, right? And I'm like, okay, fine, we'll go with 71,000 words, right? And that's how the book came about, right? So.
Well, Glenn, thank you. So, I mean, there's a lot in your story, and I just want to take some time to break it down.
Yeah.
And then we'll talk about the book and the content,
Sure.
More specifics. So first things first, I mean, we're talking sales here. We're talking the sales world, and this is a show and a channel that's dedicated to the sales industry and all industries, but sales in specific, right? And career paths. There's a few things that you've done in your life that many of us in sales have either done the same or probably going to do the same if we're still starting.
Yeah.
And the one thing that probably we have all in common, I mean, you were ambitious, and you went, you followed your dream basically and your goals, and you were willing to take risk, and that's a big deal in sales. The other thing is, I mean, again, you were given the opportunity. Again, you got recruited right off college, and in the electronic world, which is just great. I mean, that's an industry in its own. But in any industry, there's sales specialists for it, right?
Yeah.
So you were just a specialized, a person in that particular industry that understood sales, but applied it to that particular platform or format. So when for our audiences and listeners right now, if you're young and you're in college and you're visualizing your future, you want to get your degree. Obviously, that's a good thing. You have to have that. I mean, you don't have to. Some people may have an argument about that part, and we're not there. That's your choice. But if you did, it will just open up some doors differently. However, you said it yourself. You didn't have anything to do with sales. Well, at least you didn't think you had it, but the personality that you have was a sales character. And that's the other thing. It's funny, salespeople all have something in common. It's not something we learn. It's in you. You just find yourself, that's your thing. It's part of your DNA. And it is specific. Not everybody can do what we do in sales. It just, there's a lot of stuff that we do that's probably more dangerous than what some of the other jobs. People come in, they do their job, they work. We have to deal with personality. We have to deal with different things, pressure, goals, this, that. And many people cannot even take that challenge. It's very difficult, if you're not in the sales world, that you don't have that character, in you. It's just different. But you did that. So you got the job, and by the way, I love what you said. I actually look at that too in terms of recruitment, because if you were following up, you're the typical sales guy that actually wants to close. You want to keep, not pushing, but you want to keep up with that person, whether it's a hello, how you doing, how things going, that's a key element in sales. You just don't close and just move on, or you just kind of do the deal, have a good day. That's it, move on to the next. You keep in touch. You want these people to be how things going with your product, your service, whatever. So that's a key thing. And you had that character already in you. That was personality. That was you. And an interview is important too, because an interview, what people don't realize, it is a sales transaction. They're selling you a job position, and you're selling them your character, your personality, your service, what you're going to do for them. And if you don't follow up in that transaction, there's a good chance you're like, oops, it's not. There's, to your point, they said to you, you were not part of that, top tier, but yet you still made it. Yeah. And only that, in a few years, you were asking to be partner.
Exactly.
So I wanted to obviously highlight the concept of the interview process and what you did. And that I would recommend that to anyone. If you take an interview, it's okay. It's not offensive if you were to actually call and say, hey, how you doing? It's okay. It doesn't hurt your feelings. You want to, follow up, say, I just wanted to follow. Thank you for the opportunity. What's my status? How do I look? And by the way, you can even do that in the closing at your interview. Most people, I look forward when someone at the interview at the end of it is like, well, how things went? How's the interview? Yeah. What are my odds? That shows that the person is really interested. And then you can determine, that can maybe even change sometimes your decision on that particular person from an interviewer perspective. But then from your side as the actual candidate, you did the right thing, and actually you wound up with the job. It gave you the entry point to a sales career and flourishing one. Now, what you said earlier, that was interesting. about going from, a very Chevy, basic car to like a 750, at the time. And I know they've always been, spruced up with all the gizmos. So coming from the electronic world, you had all the perks in those cars. And you know what? That's, if you watched, some of the old movies and even today, I mean, you always kind of partner success with good, cars and good housing and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And it is part of it. I mean, obviously you upgrade your living standards based on your, income. And in sales, you can do that. That's the other thing that I think we can extract from the discussion today is that in sales, you have control.
Yeah.
You work for people, but you control. Believe it or not, we are more needed than people can think of, because people need people like us in sales to actually do the work, because we're the soldiers, we're the troops, and with experience, you become a general, admiral, whatever, but you're still the salesperson. You guide other, troops into the world of sales. But a lot of companies, even some of the owners of these companies are salespeople by default, you person, right? Because,
Definitely.
you have to have some sort of sales skill to be able to do this. Now, some industries is different. People come from finance and other things, and they take, the role of CEO, president, but that's different. But at the end of the day, they still have some sales skills available to them. But the fact is, you need that. And when you looked at those Beamers, that was exciting, right? I mean, like, listen, I gotta give me one of those, right?
Yeah.
and I'm pretty sure you got one of them or better. So
yeah, I got the Mercedes version.
All right, there you go. See, obviously, you got to go to the other side. I get it. But believe it or not, I'm listening to your story, it's very similar to mine. At that point, at 30. You want to make that turn. I mean, if you have ambition, any type of ambition, 30 is a big number. For younger folks today, you college, you finish your college around the 21, 22 mark. And now, even earlier, depends on, how well and how quick you went through the college concept. But and I'm talking just a bachelor's. If you go further, maybe it's still a couple more years. But at the end of the day, at bare minimum, you're at that age. You start your career, you try to figure out things, obviously, unless you have a good funding up front and you want to start off the bat, with some business. Today, it's a lot easier with the technology and the wireless, the online businesses and things like that. You can even start off the college. But in those days, it was very difficult. Plus, to your point, I love what you said. The business was the wireless, the cell phone industry. I mean, obviously, well, I don't even call them anymore. Like the other day, I was talking to my wife. I'm like, these are not cell phones. This is not cell phones, anymore. Right. Cell phones will be just something that you just dial with, through a cell tower. Yeah. This is a computer with a cell phone feature.
With a phone option.
Exactly. I mean, it's a camera, it's a cell phone, it's a computer, got everything here. Yeah. So it's a recorder. I mean, you name it, it can do it. Yeah. But you're right. At the time, that's the biggest thing. I mean, it was huge. And you saw the value. You saw that future. That's the other thing, vision. You not only you're a sales guy, you're also visionary and leader, because it takes a lot of guts to do these things, and also leaping, leap of faith is important in this world. And it sounds weird, this is not biblical, but the literally concept here is that you sometimes have to take risk. No risk, no reward.
No reward.
And in sales, it's part of that. And you mentioned the keyword goals. I mean, we live with goals. I mean, everything we do is goal driven, target, goal, quota, whatever. Quota is kind of negative, but definitely goals, whether it's life goals, business goals, targets and stuff. And we establish those goals and we go after them. We try to achieve and exceed them. That's how you thrive. And that's important. But again, these are all the traits of true salesmanship and true leadership. But what you did also, and for our audiences, listeners, if you want to get motivated, this is a great motivation, because it might be difficult, but know that Glenn had the vision and he went after it no matter what. As a matter of fact, give me a plan. Well, I gave you the plan. The idea is humongous and you're just missing the boat. Yeah. And I think that's exactly what you probably said to that person, because I would have said the same thing. And by the way, I see that as well, because I believe in that. I see the vision and people's like, we don't see the same vision. Well, that's because you're short-sighted.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
If you had really a vision, many people have that because they haven't thought about it. That's the problem. Yeah. They haven't thought about it. Like, who the hell are you to think about it, right? And what makes you think you're going to do this? Well, I'll show you how it's done.
Exactly.
And that's exactly, you took the challenge and you knew you had what it takes to make it, And so you took the challenge. But what's more difficult here, and I think for our audiences, and again, you don't necessarily have to do what Glenn did, he was willing to take that risk. I actually did exactly that. I walked out of a business because I wanted to prove to them, you're not worth me, and I'm gonna go do my thing, and I'll still succeed. And I did. So again, some of us have that personality that, you know what, you just throw a challenge at me and I'll take it and I'll show you what's up, and I'll prove you wrong no matter what you do. And I love that. I mean, and that's the characteristic that is very difficult, sometimes to manage. But if you have it, you just have to manage it well, one way or the other. There's a risk in there, and you have to be willing to take it. You are just married, literally.
Literally.
I mean, the car still said just married.
Yeah,
Right?
it did. Yeah.
and now you're actually going into this, hey, hon, I just lost my job,
Remember, I didn't ask her either, right?
I know.
Yeah.
Well, again, but you know what? That also shows something. I'm assuming you're still married to the same person.
Well, no, not, but we're good friends, but we're not married anymore.
But you were married for a minute there. So but the fact is that didn't stop the marriage. Because there was
not at all.
Exactly. No. You did what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
And for worse, for good, the marriage did work out at the point, and you did exactly what you had to do to make it work. And you did. So 5 years later, you managed to build a small fortune company, and basically you actually were able to get it. I mean, unfortunately, the share piece, again, that's what shares are. I mean, you can get millions, and if you don't sell in time or whatever, you get screwed. And unfortunately,
exactly,
you didn't see it, because that's the thing. Like, do I sell? Do I not sell? Do I sell? Do I sell?
Right.
And you think that you got it, and overnight, it's over, and then you boom. And plus, you didn't have a way to figure out these folks and how they're going to do it or not, whether they were good or not. Yeah, but those are mistakes. I mean, and that's the other thing in sales and leadership and stuff. We're not perfect. Part of the deal is that you're gonna make some mistakes. You're gonna have some hurdles. You're gonna have bad decisions. But the good decisions would definitely outweigh the actual bad decisions. And so, if I would say to 1 to 2%, and you got the 99, 98% on the other side, and that's a good, average if you want to go that way, because nothing is perfect. But if you don't take those, mix them up, you're not going to see the value. Plus, those are not mistakes; those are learning experiences. So that's the other thing, looking at things. Yeah. If you just take, at them like, oh my God, the end of the world, I can't do this again. You did it. You listen, you learn from it. Okay, great. You know what? I'm not going to work for somebody else. And that's the other thing that's important, because you were doing this for so long. You were the lead. It is a tough place to actually go back and start working and figure out your way again in the hierarchies and just decision making when somebody else makes a decision. And probably more about that than that person. It's going to be a difficult task, right? Yeah. It's always a challenge, because now you have to tell them, well, that's not going to work, and well, who are you? I'm the boss, whatever, and then you get not good. So you started your own next company, which Gap, I like it, Gap Wireless, and you know what? That took you to the next 15 years.
It did.
And that's a pretty good stretch, for running a good business. And this time you sold it for the right reasons and the right money and the right way. And so good. Thank you for that. And I'm glad that it happened and worked out the way.
Yeah.
But you know what? That's all important. But for audiences, doesn't matter what level of your career path you are, if you're in sales or even business in general, these are things that, we all can learn from. The decision pattern, the fact that you're willing to take risk, the fact that, you go forward, you go after your goals and your dream and ambition. You set targets, time frame targets. I mean, you said at 30, I wanted to have my business. I mean, you really sound like me. I mean, I have other interviews where I was interviewed, and this is exactly what I told people. That was exactly how I wanted to have my house at this time. I wanted to have this car. I wanted to have my business. I tried to retire twice. I actually did it twice, and then I got back, so I set up myself where, you have enough stream revenue, and, obviously I'm, when the first time I did, I was like at 30 mark, and then I did at 40, and I tried to do at 50, and I haven't figured that out. So I'm still working on that one. Yeah. But the fact, again, I don't believe in full retirement. I don't think I can stop. I mean, to your point, you have two speeds, right? Exactly. And that's the part of it. You can't really just shut down. I guarantee, even when you go to the sunset, in somewhere in the Caribbean.
Probably. I'll be looking at everything and deciding, can I make it into a business?
Exactly. You probably do something there, or do some consulting, or whatever.
Start a surf shop, and
Hey, listen, why not? Once you're entrepreneur, It doesn't matter. It's not going to change.
Yeah.
But those are like real key elements for our audiences, folks. If you're watching, listening, just see those things. I mean, absorb each element.
So there's one thing that most people would never guess, and they probably won't even they won't even like infer it from our conversation. So I like to bring their attention to it. Was, I was making good money running the first company, and then so it was good. But then I, of course, got all these millions of dollars worth of shares, right? So I became this multimillionaire, and then I became not a multimillionaire, right? Because all the shares went, and I couldn't have sold them anyways because I was an insider, because I had, so I could only sell 1% every 90 days during the first year or two. So there's I couldn't barely sell any of them, right? And even if I wanted to, but it's not like I died when I lost the money, right? It didn't, I didn't melt like the witch on the Wizard of Oz, getting water poured on her. It was, one would think to myself, oh my God, well, if I had $5 million and then I didn't have $5 million, like the world would come to an end, right? But it didn't. In the end, I didn't even care. Obviously I was mad and upset and whatever, and of course, pissed off at the higher ups in the public entity. But in the end, I just basically just continued my grind and went back to it. Of course, grew the company again, was making really good money. And then, of course, I got a very big payday, in February. And this time it was cash, like I said. But again, I don't feel any different with the money again, right? Someone said to me the other day, you should be happy, and I go, this is me happy, right? This is who I am, right? Because I'm all at work I'm kind of a little intense or whatever, and I'm not mean or anything like that, right? But people are thinking I should be on cloud 9 but that's not me, right? And I go, what you see every day, that's me happy, right? I'm happy doing what I'm doing. And so with the money, without the money, working to get the money again, getting the money again, never at any point did I reach a destination that changed my state, right? Sure, now I don't have to worry a little bit about, if we get something, we buy something a little bit extravagant or whatever, I don't have to give it much thought or whatever. And obviously those are nice treats, but of course, it doesn't matter how much money you have. Millions of people have way more money than you do, right? So none of it changes you, right? It doesn't. And
it shouldn't.
It shouldn't change you, right? Don't let it change you. And and it's really it has to be about the not the destination, but the journey, right? And I know that's very cliche, and everyone's, oh yeah, sure, you can say that because you got the money, but I did it for 15 years twice, right? And every day I go to work. During COVID, although I was locked up at night and on the weekends, we were an essential service, so I was in the office every day. My staff, I had to send them all home except for the warehouse and me. I was there every day from March 2020 till the end of the pandemic. I was there. I obviously didn't have any vacation or anything like that. And I like that part of the business and growing and working in the business, right? And the other thing that's not apparent as well is oh, well, I could never be a salesman, or it's not about people think, oh, you have to either be a blabbermouth or like a real super talkative. I'm actually not really super talkative, and it doesn't help you in sales to talk twice as much as the customer. You need to be listening you have 2 ears and 1 mouth, right? So you need to listen twice as much. And there's a good chapter in the book on active listening, which I always challenge everyone to try the challenge in the book to see if they can active listen with their partner. And so oh man, I completely lost my train of thought.
Hold on. You'll get to it, but I wanted to just to touch on two things. Well, first of all, I love what you said about listening, Darren. Just since that's the last piece we talked about, the fact is, you're right. That's a common mistake. Salespeople, we can talk, yes. Mm-hmm. However, we can also listen, and we listen a lot more than we think. Yeah. Because the whole idea is, if I'm not listening to what you have to say, I'm not going to be able to kind of fulfill what your needs are. Right. I need to understand your needs. I need to understand your urgencies and stuff. And so that's what it is. But if I don't ask the right questions and I don't really pay attention to what you're telling me, I'm not going to see it. Whether it's visual cues or words that you say or whatever things I need to. And so you're right. That's the big, it's a mistake. It's a common mistake when you're still novice in sales, but eventually you'll get to it. If you're good, you'll know that that's your average. You're going to do more listening than actually pitching. And when you pitch, you wouldn't know how to pitch, but you got to pitch the correct way to get there. But the other thing is, I love what you said about the up and down concept. That the money was there, the money was gone. It's amazing, right? If you teach someone how to fish, they will never starve.
Right.
Or you were able to fish day one, you're always going to be able to fish. No one can ever stop you from feeding yourself.
Exactly.
You're going to start again. Once you start once, you can start twice and three times and stuff.
Yeah.
You have the stamina to do it. That's one thing. But the fact is, that's the other thing. Yeah, money is great. Listen, I love money. Like, I don't think anyone watching and listening right now that says, oh, I don't want money, or I can't use money. We all can use money, and depends on how much you want to spend with it. You will just want more of it. As a matter of fact, the more you have, the more you're going to want more.
Yeah.
However, it's how you manage it. Do you hold it in your heart or in your hand? If you control in your hand is one thing. Don't let it get into your heart.
Yes.
Because if everything becomes revolving around the money, you lose it. If the money is a tool, and you can use it, in do good ways, whether it's for your family, for yourself, or even do good deeds and be a philanthropist, whatever you want to be. But that's good. But don't let it, get into you, because that's when people actually like suicide and, it's the end. This is the end. It's never the end, just a new beginning, a new chapter. Just move on, fold and go again. If you did it once, you can do it twice and many other times, over. As long as you live, you can do it. And this time you do it from better experience, and you'll be much good at it. You're much better at it. So that's an important. And I love when you kind of brought this up, because to your point, many people are afraid of failure, or like, oh my God, do expect that it can happen to the best of us.
Oh yeah.
And as a matter of fact, if you look at all the success stories around this world, we can talk about some of the big guys out there, right? They all have their own chapters where they had, bad, those decisions, whatever. They lost some money, they gained some more, but they never give up. They always kind of reset, and they do. They reset, they do, but they already know. They have a core foundation in their base how to do it. So now they just start from that next level. You may not start at level 0, you're level 2 or 3, but by experience, you're already there. So you know what to avoid, things like that. So the little mistakes you made up front, they're no longer mistakes. They actually learned, values that you're going to apply now. And that's how it's done. So you were able to do that easily. Now, to your point, it's beautiful to be, I'm a millionaire. That's a good achievement. But then, oops, they're gone overnight. All right, so you can dwell about it and just kind of collapse, or you can just know what, I'm going to do better this time. And that's all there is. So there's two, exactly. There's two, you can say, like, that's like being at sea, and you have two options. Are you going to, like sink and drown, or you want to be just save, and make it happen? Exactly. You paddle up until you come out to safety. Yeah. Exactly what it is. So the choice is obvious. You don't want to, drown. You want to make it. And so you can, that's the thing. Most people sometimes at the first, loss, they just lose everything, including themselves, their mind, their body, their spirit. They become, totally like collapsed. You don't. And again, if you are in business, if you are in anything in life, know that this is part of the life. You're going to have some of these challenges that going to be thrown at you. There's curveballs. There's a lot of things that blindside you in this world. And when they hit you, you just have to be aware that it might happen. So don't ever say like, it's never going to happen to me, because be always ready to embrace, to brace, something like that, because not necessarily embrace it, but brace for impact, because that's exactly what's going to happen. The pandemic was a big one. Nobody's seen it coming, and it happened. Yeah. Some people didn't brace, for impact, and they get hurt. And some people embrace it and brace for impact at the same time. And so they made it through. But at the end of the day, it's an experience that we've all experienced as a whole world. But many of us have these similar experiences in our lives, just in personal, and many we don't hear about stories. Your story today, we hear about it, but you've experienced it. The people around you have experienced it with you. And you know what? It affects other people. The fact that you had all this, I'm sure you have your teams, you have other people that were impacted.
Absolutely.
And again, that's the other, leading by example. If they see you not collapse, they will also probably stand stronger. If you collapse at the first, win, it's over. These other people also are just not going to be able to make it. So you have to stand strong, as a leader, and you did that well. And yes, I'm pretty sure it was not as easy as, right now we talk about things. It's easy to talk about things, but when you go through them, it might be a little more difficult. It takes a little bit of energy, but it's how you deal with things. If you deal with them, if you are factual and you just, this is it. That's again, can I change this? No, it's happened. It's over. So there's two things. I can cry about it, or I can just move on from it. Learn, move on. And that's exactly what you need to be doing. So it doesn't matter what you're doing out there. If something happens and it's not really the outcome you wanted, well, That's it. You can't change that now. What you can do is to learn from it and avoid all the little things that you did that got you this outcome, and do better next time. And know that there's many, as long as you live, you have opportunities. There's no such thing as age. There's no such thing as I can't do it. To your point, money, you were able to be creative in finding the money. That's the other thing. Most of us in business, we're like, oh my God, where am I getting the money? There's different ways. You can work sideways. You can moonlight, do this. You can get partners. You can get loans, whatever you can do. There are ways. If there's a will, there's a way. You'll find a way, but just don't say I can't.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So yeah. By the way, did you get to your point? Is it back?
So I do remember my point. Yeah. And there's sort of 2 points. One, is about sales and people having being scared about going into sales and what have you. Is, well, first of all, like, sales is kind of like, it's kind of like the career, like, all like a gift from God kind of a career where, and people are like, what are you talking about? And I'm saying, like, it doesn't really matter what field you study or whatever, whether, and you might make 60K or you might get to 120K or whatever, and even some people might get up to like 200K as an employee or what have you, right? But I can assure you, the guy that works for a company, some kind of a company that makes 150 or 200 grand a year has probably got lots and lots of schooling and lots of grueling hours, right? Meanwhile, a salesman can come in and in a couple 3 years, depending upon the industry, if he's good, passionate, he or she, can easily make $150,000 a year, right? And it's like, and they may only have an undergraduate degree, they might have a technical diploma, and it's the only career that like over rewards people for doing a good job. Right? Most other jobs are just bracketed. Like, there's a lot of guys, that have very important jobs, maybe at utilities or, this with the city or whatever, they're making 80 grand, 90 grand or whatever. And they count themselves super lucky and like as the very, very fortunate, right? But as a salesman, you can just rocket past those people, right? What other career allows you to do that? Only celebrity and, you could be a YouTube star or an influencer or a TikTok star nowadays, right? But I mean, in reality, right, it gives you a gift. And I feel that the only thing you need in order to be a proper salesperson, is one, to be passionate about something. If you're not passionate, then you probably won't enjoy the job or be good at it. But if you love something, it doesn't matter if it's needlepoint or electronic kind of stuff, gadgets that I liked, whatever it is you geek out over, it could be, there's millions of things you could sell, like health products, medical products, if you can get passionate about those products, you can be an exciting salesperson. And again, the gift is being what I feel is unfairly rewarded for it in comparison to your compatriots. The second part of the lesson is that the real key that I learned was that the real difference is if you start your own business, there are rewards that you just never see as an employee. Right? Because as an employee, if I went and got a sales job, let's say I was doing good, I made 120 grand a year, right? I consider myself lucky, doing well, maybe it's 150, it doesn't matter. But now me as a person, if I hire a salesperson and he's making 120 or 150 grand a year, I can hire 10 more of him and I get paid for every one of them, right? It's called leverage, right? And, he might go from, 120 to 150 to 180 maybe, right? But if I have 10 of those guys or whatever, then we get big giant deals, then we get a deal with the government, and then AT&T comes along, gives us a ginormous contract. I can go to like a $2 million a year. He's only making 190K, right? Because he's not the owner. The owner gets an unfair share. Maybe that doesn't sound that great, but he gets an unfair share because he takes an unfair share of the risks. Mm-hmm. When everyone needs to get paid, sometimes he won't get paid. That's why he gets, and so by virtue of taking the sales and combining it with an entrepreneur where you take that leap of faith and start a business, you get paid for every penny that goes on in the business, not just what happens in your territory. And that's why I always insisted why I wanted to restart the business, because I didn't want to be just a lone ranger getting paid just for my territory and my account. I want to be paid for all of it, right? And so it worked out really well, right? And the other, sorry, and the one more thing is that if people, if you do start your own business, then you're the president, you're the leader or whatever. I don't believe in like being the CEO of a company of one. Like, I find that to be a little weird, but I mean, you're the president of your company. You start hiring people. I talk about this in the book as well. Your real job is to make decisions, right? It's not to work the longest hours. It's not the one that always be the first one in and the last one to leave. You don't want to have to pick up the heaviest box, and run the fastest. That's not your job. Your job's to make decisions and make them in a timely and predictable manner, so that when people are spazzing and they're freaking out because there's a problem with a customer, you want to be calm, cool, and collected, and you want to make a decision and help them to solve the problem, because that's all your people want from you, because they don't want to make the decision and they're like usually paralyzed to make the decision, right?
Yeah.
And it's so important that you do that. And and if you need to go freak out, kind of go into the bathroom and freak out in the stall and then come back and make a decision, right? And yeah.
Well, Glenn, it's amazing. I'm listening to your part here, and you hit on some real core sales and leadership, things. And by the way, it's amazing what you said about sales. It's unfair, that those guys can get more compensation than the average, person, even with more education.
Right.
And there is a reason for that. That's, by the way, it's true, because in all career paths, it doesn't matter if you're in sales, no matter where, there's a good chance you're hated to a degree, because you get the luxury of life. What I mean with that is that you go to dinners, you have the card, you're doing you get the perks, you get the gifts, and maybe other people in other departments don't see that. No. So you're always gonna get the eye, the look, like, these guys, here comes the sales guys. And it is unfortunate, but you know what? There is a good reason, and I'll tell you what that is. We're cost neutral. We bring the revenue.
We do.
we earn our income, and the compensation is attached to targets or overachieving. So you overachieve, you're gonna get more, and that's the incentives are built on that. Yeah, but if someone tells me this, I always tell them, well, you want to do the job? Let's see if you can do it. But standing in front of people and pitching, going to companies or client, what a B2B or B2C, what doesn't matter. If you're selling to something, someone, somewhere, there is that not everybody can do that. That's the part. Yeah. Canvassing, prospecting for business, going, the bad days, the good, the amount of no's you're gonna get before you get the yeses. All these things that you don't have to distress, the targets. That's the other part people don't see. We have targets every day that you had to hit. Every month, every quarter. People don't realize that. So they work, they get their salary, they do their functions, they move on. You don't stop. When people actually have the 9 to 5, the salespeople are working, later. When the client says, I want to meet you at 9 p.m., you don't say, no, I don't work until 9 p.m. You want to meet Saturday, you meet Saturday. Those are the things that do actually kind of give you that advantage, and therefore the ability to get more. You're right. In my industry, in the insurance world and the government programs in the States, you can, my entry point level right now in our sales, they start at 50 base and with a commission structure that can get them 130, 140 year one. Right. High school, not even
no college.
All right. So and in 2 years, if they're good and they have other, aspirations, management, whatever, they can double that. Yeah. Literally. So there is no shame in the game. You need a license. A state license, which basically, again, you go and get a course, you actually take a state exam, and if you're good, you push through. And some of these people do just as phenomenal. Some of them finally they get that kind of income. Some companies provide some tuition reimbursement, and they go at night and do their college and they do the master's degree, and now they become the next VP or whatever. So it happens. So to your point, it is. I appreciate that you said that, because that's powerful stuff. And like I said, this is not hey, the salespeople are better than anybody. We take more risk. Yeah. And our jobs are always volatile, because if you don't deliver, there's a good chance you're not going to have a job. Yeah. Also, people can say, I got a very cushy job. I'll come in, and as long as I do my keystrokes, I'm good, and I deliver my reports. Sales, how you do this month? What's going on? Month two, not good. No, month two, unfortunately, it's not working out. Have a good day.
Right.
See, that's the thing. Now, on the flip side, you're a sales guy, you're a sales gal. You can go anywhere. To your point, you can sell. If you can sell one thing, you can sell another thing. You just learn the product, the service, and you can pitch it. You have what
exactly.
it takes. Yeah. We're adaptable, and that means we carry our skill with us. And and that's an important piece for our audiences. So if you want to make the leap into the sales world, whether it's real estate, investment, financial, life insurance, health insurance, tech, whatever, cars, doesn't matter. You can make the money. You will never run out of business opportunities. That's the other part. You'll always be able to generate income. You can sell, you can put stuff on eBay and sell it.
Any town, any place.
Any town, you go to flea market and sell stuff. You see, that's the character that many people may not be able to do, but it comes with that personality. It comes with the risk. And then you added something, again, the next value that you talked about is you are the leader. You are the president. You are making decisions. And yes, you are. You're taking risk. I mean, it's investment, it's your name, it's your reputation, it's your career path, it's all the stuff that you built to that point. And someone's going to do the work, but there's expectations that they have to deliver. And you also have to, especially when you're the owner, right?
Yeah.
You're right. You're talking about decision making. The hardest thing that people are always afraid to make is decisions. That's why there's very few leaders and a lot more followers, because I don't want to make that decision. I don't want to be the guy or the gal that actually made the call, and you see it in meetings, like people will look at you like, who's going to make that call?
Yeah.
And as a leader, they look up to you like, look up to you. Are you going to do this? And sometimes decisions are made that you might not even like, but unfortunately you make them. And I've had these interviews before when someone says, like, what is your worst? For me, for example, decision is when you terminate somebody. Right. It is the worst decision that you ever make, as a leader. But nevertheless, it's there. And by the way, I'd expect the same thing for me if I don't deliver whatever. Yeah. I'm actually accountable for myself. I mean, if I don't see me doing, I'd probably be the one who's going to walk away. Because if I can't see myself doing whatever reasons I can't achieve goals, then I want to see that maybe this is not the route for me. Maybe it's time for me to change something, right? Yeah. But those decisions, whether on you, or your employees or your staff or your teammates, that's the hardest part. And again, decisions, sometimes one decision can make or break the company. And it's based on intelligence, whatever sometimes you get, and if you get the wrong feed, whatever, or sometimes the support is not there. You have everything, but the operation is not working out well with you. You're missing stuff. Your manufacturer is not delivering on time. Yeah. Now you have issues. Customers are upset. To your point, people don't like, would you like to speak to my supervisor or my boss? They don't want to talk to people and be the front, face where they can get, cursed out. They want somebody else to take that blunt. I'm not, let me bring my lead here. I
don't want to interrupt, but that spot there is perfect segue that there's a chapter in the book that I call "Thank God It's Broken," and where you're saying, like, when there's problems and you can't get parts or whatever. And I've seen this in so many salespeople where the customer will call and either something's like broken, like we sell tech, right? So it's not working, not functioning, or maybe the products are late arriving, something like that, right? These are like, and the customer is pissed off. There's no other nice way to put it, right? And they will like recoil with sort of like aversion. So they'll let that customer slip to voicemail. They'll see if the RMA department can help, or, and I'm saying, like, no, like when the phone rings and it's a problem, that's your best friend, because anyone can sell them the product, but only a good quality salesperson can support them after they've bought the product. Yes. And although it might be scary because you might get yelled at, and sometimes you do, but you'd be pissed off too if your shit was broken or late, right? Just think about it at your home when your contractors aren't showing up or whatever, right? And but if you can take that call and guide them through the problem, find them a loaner, figure out what the problem is, and every time they call, pick up the phone, even when it's bad news, and say, look, you know what? Don't have an update. I don't know. I've called every day, whatever. Then at the end, when it's resolved, they'll say, you know what? I like to buy from Glenn because when I call, there's a problem, he picks up the phone. And the other guy, he just wanted the commission check and he was gone, right? And so that's why I love that chapter. Thank God it's broken, right? And
Glenn, thank you for putting that there, because you know what? It's funny. It is a big piece of sales. The fact is, you're right. Everybody can sell, but do you really take care of your customers? And you know what? I always tell my teams, things can go wrong. There's no guarantee that things. For example, I'm in the insurance world. As simple as the doctor doesn't want to see you, your appointment is 3 months out. Your transportation doesn't show up on time. You have the package. I did the good job. Everything is good, but the service now is not being delivered accordingly. You're the first one to blame as a sales guy. So now what happens? It's to your point. Do I avoid the actual call? Do I let me, and this happened. The worst part, I used to do presentations when I started, right? So I go to these groups in settings. And one time I was, just a funny story. I was actually standing in front of a crowd in a patient, place. And so I'm talking, my name is so-and-so. And, here I'm talking about, and the lady stands out like, your company sucks.
Right.
Holy shnikes. That was a tough one. So now there were two things here. Obviously that's it. The day is bad. It's ruined. Technically, that would have been ruined if I just collapsed on that and just I started. I was like, well, ma'am, so I isolated her in front. So I showed everybody that, okay, well, let me see what seems to be the problem. And I'm tired of waiting, blah, 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 appointments, stuff. Like, is that all there is? She's like, come with me. And I took her out and we made the phone call and we solved the problem right there and we came back. And she stood up and said, you know what? They're great. They're just
exactly.
They're just so, and I use this in training, but
customer for life.
It is exactly. So basically now I turned her to an ally and a supporter and a testimony, and it worked. And this happens all the time, especially when you do these presentations on the call. Yeah. If you turn that person, it's like, well, maybe you can go to the competition, but you're not going to get this. I'm here to help you. Yes, things happen. I apologize. Let me see what we can do to make it better for you. And that's it. That's really what makes the difference. But no company can tell you you're never going to have a problem, because all it takes is one little thing. And if you set that expectation that high, forget it. You'll be lying, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you do. To your point, the other thing is we're salespeople. We're also consumers.
Exactly.
Right? Do we expect that from our, salespeople that sell us things? No, we have certain expectations from our services and products that we buy, and those experiences we should not dish out, right? So we need to be ahead of them. And so by using this element of balance, you should be good at it and understand these. So every person you talk to, just put yourself in their shoes and then figure out exactly, that you don't want to be in a position where you're not happy. So you're going to do the best. And you're right. If the guy is not doing the job and they're not responding, too bad. Now let's talk about, the book as a whole. We've kind of talked about different chapters. So the name of the book is Never Sit in the Lobby. Is that what it is?
Yeah. Never Sit in the Lobby. Yeah.
So that is an interesting name.
Yeah. I find that people sitting in the lobby, they're on their cell phones, they're reading magazines, they're not paying attention. And all of a sudden the customer's standing over them, towering down at them, going like, dude, do we have a meeting or don't we? Right. So I'm always standing up, and I'm not that tall. Right. So I like to, I don't want to be like 3 feet below the guy who's 6 feet tall, right? Or 6.5 feet tall. So I learned the rule that always be standing, don't put your hands in your pockets. Don't be playing with your phone. Don't be reading the plaques on the wall. And, you don't want to show up too early so that you only have to stand for a few minutes and wait for your customer. And then when he walks out or she walks out, you're there to greet them in a professional manner. And that's one of the rules. The other rule that goes hand in hand with that one is always show up with something in your hand and something in your mind. Right. And so it could be a quote that they've asked for. It could be literature on a product they've asked for. It could be, a giveaway, promo item, a water bottle, a pen, some kind of giveaway that your company's got that moment, a coaster, a mouse pad, but always have something in your hand and always have something in your mind. Right. I'm here to talk to you about that. You said there was a problem with this feature, or you said you were interested in increasing your throughput. I'd like to get a few minutes, there's 50. I have to take a breath because there's 57 of them, right? And I'll just keep going, right? And and the other one I love that goes right with at that point on that little part of the day is called Never Forget a Face, right? Where I have you sit in the parking lot waiting for a few minutes before your meeting, and while you're doing that, you're looking on your phone or your laptop on LinkedIn, and you're associating all the people's names that you know at the customer with their face, so that when you bump into them in the lobby or in the hallway from a meeting 6 months ago, and they say, hey, Glenn, and I can't get their name because my brain just can't function that fast, right? And then they're already halfway down the hall before you remember who it was, right? You want to have the remembrance. You want to remember them before you need to know them, right? And so when you show up, it's like Bob, Sally, Jack, George, right? And everyone's, and the guy you're with is like, holy shit, you know everybody, right? And and the people that you say hi to, they like being addressed by their name. It makes them feel good. And they're like, oh, I really like that Glenn guy. He's so friendly and nice. And, you know, we always like it when he comes and visits, right? And
well, it's personable.
It is. And,
you know,
yeah, the worst thing is if you've ever been anywhere, including your kid's soccer game or a customer, and you know the guy knows your name, he said it, and you can't remember his name, and you're figuring out how in the world do I remember the person's name? And you're like, someone saved me, right? And yeah, so those are a few of the rules. Anyways.
Well, I love it, and you know, definitely we want to check out the book, folks. I mean,
right.
You know, now the book is available already; it's out.
Yeah, it's on all the major bookstores. It's in all the formats: audio, ebook, you know, Kindle, you know, hard copy, soft copy. It's on Amazon, everywhere else.
And also, there's a link, I'm assuming, in your website.
Yeah, GlennPoulos.com. Yeah.
All right, good. So we'll have that description, you know, that link in the description of the show, so people can actually link out to it. Listen, it is definitely. I would recommend the book in terms of, you know, sales. I mean, it's definitely going to touch on a lot of areas that we all can use. And even if you're not a salesperson, I think there's factual things that about life that you can apply. A lot of sales stuff is applicable in regular life. Yeah. Most people don't even see that is actually a fact, but it is. So do what it takes, you know, take a quick look at the book and you know, let's support, you know, Glenn's, you know, work and definitely let's learn. I mean, that's the other part that we have to always remember. You took the time to write this book based on 30 plus years of live experience and real things that actually, and there's nothing better than that experience, you know, that you put into those words, because this is not a theory. This is something that is true, been tested out in live. Good, the bad, and ugly is all there. And so you can tell, you know, what to do, what not to do. And there's nothing, that's the thing, that's the wisdom that you put in there. And that's good for anybody that's new to the industry, to sales in general, or just that wants to learn more tricks about how to operate in the real business world, whether it's business, you know, get into their business world, you know, just starting their own opportunity, or just working for other people and how to avoid. I mean, this tip you just talked about, recognizing the names and being ahead. I mean, before LinkedIn and these things, it was hard because you have to really remember those people. But now you can literally just look them up. I mean, they know that you look them up. Eventually, they're gonna see, like, you know, that you check their profile, unless you have one of those, you know, pro memberships where they don't tell who is looking up them. But the fact is, at least you have the ability to do that. And even if I saw someone did look me up, it doesn't hurt me. That means they actually did their due diligence. Yeah, and it's a better, you know, discussion. So it's all good. Well, listen, Glenn, I mean, we can talk more. I mean, we had a great hour here.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Thank you so much for the information, for your insights.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. It was great. Yeah, it went by so fast.
I know. Time flies when you're having fun, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Well, listen, enjoyed the I guess the summer, the heat wave that you guys have there.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
And I appreciate the time and your content here.
Awesome.
Folks, thank you for being with us, for listening in and watching on the channel here. And we'll be talking soon. New day, new guest, new show. Stay tuned. Bye-bye.